Water in,
We're gonna throw it all out and start all over.
good, I see you guys got some waters, good.
No one, but yeah, no.
Okay.
No. Do that.
Teresa said she wants
Okay, we're live,
The
folks.
third time is supposed to be the charm.
All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Lorraine County Board of Commissioners meeting of April 20th, 2021. This meeting will now come to order. Madam Clerk, if you would please read the A hearing into the record.
This is a continued public hearing that was continued today from April 6, 2021, where testimony was given on the regular annexation of approximately 41.9821 acres in Eaton Township to the Village of Grafton for the petitioner KNG Limited, Kevin Flanagan, authorized member.
Okay. First, we will have Dan administer the oath to anyone giving testimony if there is anyone new added today from last time that plans to speak. Please rise.
Council? Yeah.
Yep,
Only the new people?
only the new people.
You were sworn last week, correct? Or last time, correct? There's
Yeah.
someone who wasn't
He
sworn.
was not.
He was not, neither was,
Please raise your right hand.
Ashdown, and then these two ladies
Repeat
here
after
were
me.
not.
I solemnly swear that any testimony I may give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so Prosecutor Petticord, I will turn the meeting over to you.
Do we want to pledge allegiance?
Pardon?
Do we start with the pledge?
We skipped that today, but we can if you'd like to.
That's fine.
Okay,
Counsel, I believe we have one further witness in your case in chief, correct?
Couple, actually.
Okay.
And if it's okay, with the chair, what I want to do is, we have a sheriff's deputy here, and I know I was sort of in the middle of examining Trustee Monchine, but I'd like to get the sheriff's deputy out of here if we can. So if it's okay, I'm going to take him out
I
of
don't
order.
think we started the trustee at all with examination, so if you want to call your witness, how are you going to call your witness? Go ahead.
Okay. Deputy Ashdown?
Good morning.
Good morning. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Name is Daniel Ashdown. The address is 5312 Cameron Court in Sheffield Village, Ohio.
And I actually wanted the business address because your personal address is private. So I'm going to ask the court reporter to strike the personal address and give us and I apologize, I didn't make that clear.
It's 9896 Murray Ridge Road in Elyria.
Okay, thank you. Is that the sheriff's department for
That is the
Lansing?
sheriff's office address.
And give us an idea of your educational background, please, Deputy Ashdown.
In 1998, I graduated the state Ohio Academy for law enforcement. Continuous training throughout the years to the pinnacle of my education here in 2020. I was a graduate of the FBI National Academy in Quantico.
And how long, and you've been in law enforcement since 1998?
Yes, 23 years.
And who all have you worked for?
I've worked for Sheffield Village, and the rest of my career has been with the sheriff's office.
Okay, how long with the sheriff?
23 years.
Okay, thank you. And does the sheriff provide police protection to Eaton Township,
It does.
including the area to be annexed? Is that
It
correct?
does.
And could you give me an idea, give the commissioners an idea, and I suspect they already know it, you know, the resources that the sheriff's department brings to providing police service to a township like Eaton?
Sure. We have very vast specialty units. Currently, we have 24 patrol deputies assigned to patrol for all the townships and unincorporated areas, giving us about 4 or 5 deputies on average that are patrolling those areas for service. Some of the things that we have that are unique is we maintain the county bomb team, the county SWAT team for special responses. We have an established detective bureau with certified evidence techs and a crime scene unit to be deployed out on scene. We're launching our new drone program here in the next couple weeks. We have 3, soon to be 4 SROs, 1 in Midview School District in Eaton Township.
And an
area.
SRO, just to be clear, is a school resource officer?
Correct.
Thank you.
We also provide the DARE program for all the schools in Lorraine County. We have our auxiliary program, which is our volunteer organization that comes out and assists us on large scenes, natural disasters and things like that. And we have our Township Impact Unit. Those guys are assigned specifically to the townships. They deal directly with the township trustees to address concerns that may come up unique to those areas. They work hand in hand with our Environmental Crime Unit that deals with those crimes specific to open dumping, burning, water issues. And some of the stuff that we have available to us to target areas that are identified as special need is traffic grant overtime, that if we have a problem area that we identify, we can direct additional patrol into those areas. So I think we do a very good job of providing support needed to our community.
Thank you. And you'd mentioned your specialty units. I think you mentioned a few. Are there others you'd like to discuss briefly with the commissioners? And if
No.
not, that's okay.
No, the only other 2 I didn't mention in those was our sexual predator unit, which, we're tasked with keeping track of sex offenders, violent offenders, and arson offenders wherever they live. So those guys are in the community keeping track of those offenders. And our warrant unit, who takes care of serving all warrants, and they are special attachment to the Northern Ohio Violent Fugitive Task Force. So we have the support of the U.S. Marshal Service that works with us on those.
And you're familiar with other police departments in Lorraine County, correct?
Yes,
And you have some familiarity with the Village of Grafton Police Department?
yes.
Now, I don't want to get fire or police departments fighting with each other, so let me ask the question this way. If this annexation were allowed, would the quality of police protection for Eaton Township, the area to be annexed, be improved if the Village of Grafton Police Department were to be providing this police services?
Personally, I would say no.
Okay, and can you tell us why?
With everything that I've just mentioned that we have available, we're pretty self-reliant. Not to say anything bad about Grafton, but, there is mutual aid between both. And I don't have the stats to pull, and I don't know how many they have on patrol, but we always have the manpower available to handle our situations as they come in.
Is it fair to say that, say, in the last 5 years, the number of times that you've asked for mutual aid from Grafton and received it is far less than the times you provided mutual aid to Grafton Village Police Department?
I couldn't accurately answer that without pulling the statistics.
Okay. And you were saying somebody was working on that as we...
Correct.
we
911
don't
was
have
trying to
those
pull
yet.
those numbers for us. That's the nice thing about mutual aid is, when you call for it, somebody comes. And, we've had our fair share that we've had to ask for Grafton to come out and help us on certain situations, and they've had to call for us. Police work's a fluid situation. You never know what the day's going to bring and what your manpower needs are going to be, so.
Sure. But on average, you don't think the police service will benefit from this annexation?
I do not.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you. The other attorneys may wish to ask a question.
Counsel?
Deputy Ashdown?
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank you for your service to our community. I live in Carlisle Township. You're my police force, and
Yes.
I think you guys do an exemplary job. So there's no question about that here, okay? Is the service area for the sheriff's department about 357 square miles of township road, law enforcement services to over 63,000 residents in 18 townships? That's what your website says. Do you
Yep, that
believe
sounds
that's
about
roughly
right.
accurate? Okay, great. And so that's a lot of territory you guys cover. I mean, there's no question about that, correct?
Correct.
And you describe some of these specialty programs, county bound, SWAT, drone. Those are, let me ask this instead. Can you name some of the communities you have mutual aid agreements with? Do you have a mutual aid agreement with the Sheriff's Department with Elyria?
It is countywide,
So it's all the agencies.
so Elyria, Lorraine, Grafton, Wellington, Sheffield, Sheffield Village, Avon, Avon Lake.
Okay.
It is a countywide mutual aid agreement.
Right, and that's a great thing. I represent several ambulance districts in the area, and they have mutual aid agreements. When you need it, man, and I know you guys are all, you're all together in that, and you stick together and do what's right. I appreciate that. The county-bound SWAT drone, some of these are be used in pretty emergency-type situations, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you would provide mutual aid to Grafton and to the parcel if requested, correct?
We would,
And they would respond in kind to you if you needed them for whatever reason.
absolutely.
In the sex offenders, that's a service you provide for the whole county through the courts, right? The sex offender
Correct.
registry, and so is the warrant unit.
Correct.
It's a function of the sheriff's department, but it does benefit, I mean, like a lot of things you guys do, it benefits the whole community.
Correct.
Do you think that the sheriff's department would be negatively impacted by losing 40 acres worth of property in its territory?
I can't honestly say that would.
Are you personally against this annexation going forward?
I have no personal opinion of it.
Thank you, I don't have anything for it. One more question. Does the sheriff's department have an official position regarding the annexation of this parcel?
No, we just wanted to clarify that we are able to provide appropriate law enforcement for that area.
Absolutely, Deputy, and I don't think there's any question about that. Thank you.
Sure.
Hold on a second, Deputy. Can you redirect?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy.
Next witness.
I'd like to call Jean Toy.
Oops, Counsel? Sir, were you sworn last?
I was,
You were here last- okay.
yes. I think I was in my same lucky spot as I am today. so. Can I remove this now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And then just state your name for the record.
My name is Eugene M. Toy.
Gene, you're ahead of me. Would you please, you've already stated your name. Could you give us your business address?
It is 22898 West Road, Wellington, 44090.
Okay, and what is your educational background?
I guess beginning when? College or high school? I mean, how far?
Let's start with college.
Okay. I have a bachelor's degree from the College of Worcester. That was 1987. And a master's degree from Ohio University in 1990.
What's the master's in?
Master's degree was in geological sciences.
Thank you. And of course, you have continuing education courses as time goes on, correct?
Yes, I don't list them on my resume, but I do have them, so.
And what is your work experience?
After graduating from Ohio U in 1990, I worked for 10 years for a national engineering firm, Burgess & Nyepel. It was a limited at the time. It's a incorporated now, same company. So that was from 1990 until 2000. From 2000 until 2008, I was village administrator in Crestline, Ohio. It's in Crawford County. From 2008 to 2013, I was city manager in Galion, Ohio, which is also in Crawford County. And then from 2013 to present, in my current position, Executive Director of Lorco.
Okay. And I think you and I first met when you were village administrator for Galleon?
City Manager in Galleon,
City manager.
yes, correct.
Okay. And did I meet you when we were in Crestline?
Would have been an annexation hearing I would have attended, but didn't have an active role in. But it was just there to observe Galleon's proceedings.
Okay. So the point is, you have represented villages and cities seeking annexation as a manager.
I've been on both sides of the table, yes.
Okay, thank you. Did you attend the annexation, first annexation hearing on this matter on April 6th?
Yes, I was here.
Okay. Did you hear Mr. Price testify that annexation is required as part of NOACA's FPA modification process?
I don't recall the exact words, but I do remember that that was my understanding of what was portrayed, yes.
Okay. And is that your understanding that annexation is required?
It is not, no.
Okay, tell us what based on your experience and education and background, tell us what the reality is.
Yeah, facility planning areas can be applied for and sought from Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency, that's NOACA. They can be sought, but that annexation is not a prerequisite or a requirement.
And I've marked as an exhibit a one-page, well, 2 pages. If I might approach, I'm going to hand these out, and of course, give them to the council. There's 3 there. I don't know if there's an extra one. I'll give you mine when I'm done, if that's okay.
Have you seen this before?
No.
Just now.
When you're ready, you want to be heard on it?
I'm sorry?
I want to see if they have an objection with it. Right.
Well, just that I haven't seen it before. I did offer some exhibits just prior to the hearing. That was to give him an opportunity to talk to his client. Maybe I could, I would have liked the opportunity to have spoken with Mr. Price briefly about the content of this, but it's up to the body, what the body wants to do.
We're fine, you can proceed.
I can share with Dave.
Okay, I've handed you what's been marked
I
as
can share with
Exhibit
Dave.
C. Could you describe what that is,
sure.
please, for the record?
At the hearing on the 6th, there were some representations and statements made that were not in accordance with my understanding and past communications with NOACA. Joe and I actually spoke during one of the breaks and talked about it, and I agreed to disagree, but I knew what I had been told previously by NOACA after the annexation hearing back in December. I checked in and confirmed that annexation was not a requirement or prerequisite for seeking a facility planning area change. So this was a follow-up to the annexation hearing on the 6th, where I confirmed to Lorco Legal Counsel that to be the case, that annexation was not a prerequisite for seeking a change.
Okay. And Eric Aiken works for NOACA?
He does.
And Exhibit C is simply his reply to your email indicating that, yeah, you're right, you don't need annexation in order for there to be consideration of changing the service area. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Exhibit B, and I apologize. I had a hearing last night that lasted till 11:30, so my ability to think fast isn't as good today as it should be.
Hold on a second. Counsel, is this another new document?
Yes.
Okay. You know what? We're going to take a couple minutes break, and the lawyers are going to go stand outside and talk for a minute. Okay? Kate and counsel, if there are other exhibits you have, bring them with you.
Are we
thank
ready,
you
Megan?
for-
Yep, you're good. Okay.
Like I said, we're gonna try and, just to the witnesses, I'm gonna apologize. I've asked council to move with alacrity and with speed because we didn't anticipate that this would be as many witnesses today, and there are scheduling issues that I don't want to reschedule this hearing again. So we may truncate a little bit, and we're going to try and get through this as efficiently as possible, make sure the information gets to the board that they need. And so some of the questioning may be a little bit chopped up. That's my fault because I asked the council to shorten things as best they could. I would ask you that you keep your answers to the point and as clear as possible so we can get this done and get it in and get this situation resolved. Go ahead, council, please.
Thank you. Could you identify just very briefly Exhibit C for the record?
That was
B,
a,
rather. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Exhibit B.
I did it already, I believe, did I not, or?
Well, there's two of them.
Did we not get the new one?
We did not get it.
Tell you what,
Was there a
let
new
me
one
try to just
Do you
ask.
have it?
Let me just
There's a
ask.
new exhibit, did you not give me that, you did not give me a copy of D?
Well, we're trying to eliminate exhibits to move some time along, so maybe I can just ask you some questions. This relates to, we already talked about, you don't need annexation in order to have a change in NOACA's FPA modification process, right?
Well, I can't speak for NOACA, but that's my experience and information from them. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, based on information from NOACA and the
Yes.
exhibit we just talked about. But what's the effect? Does annexation eliminate the township as an affected jurisdiction to NOACCA's FPA decision?
It would, were the annexation granted, then during the facility planning area change process where support from affected jurisdictions is required by the person seeking the change, then yes. I mean, the township in this case would no longer be considered by NOACA as an affected jurisdiction.
Okay, so as it stands now, without the annexation, the township of Eaton is an affected jurisdiction and it has some say or some input into NOACA's decision. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, correct.
And if the annexation is allowed, basically Eaton Township's out and doesn't have any say as to NOACA's decision.
I mean, they could still speak, they could still, at a NOACA meeting, they could still provide public comment, but their support would not be required.
Okay. So they could stand on the sidelines bellowing, but their support's not required if the annexation proceeds.
Correct, support is not required, so.
Would the township be notified or provided an opportunity to comment on the proposed FPA modification if it was not an affected jurisdiction?
They could request to be notified, but it would be, as I understand their process, more of an informal notification and not a required one.
Okay. Let me skip a couple things. You heard Mr. Flanagan and Mr. Price testify as to the potential cost of a lift station in that April 6, 2021 hearing, didn't you?
I recall some figures that were mentioned, yes.
Okay. Is Lorco prepared to undertake the building of that lift station for Fiddler's Green Phase 4?
Yes.
Is it Lorco's position that Lorco would design, bid, and build the pump station as a Lorco development, or, if the developer preferred it, work with the developer to have it built by the developer?
Yeah, either option would be acceptable as long as our specifications were followed.
Okay. And if it were built by the developer and your specifications were followed, would Lorco provide reimbursement to the developer by committing back to the developer the Lorco tap-in fees for the first certain number of taps sold that would equal to the cost of the lift station?
Yes.
Are there advantages to pumping the sewage north so that it flows into Lake Erie instead of the Black River?
Well, all of Lorco's collection system currently ends up by gravity. Sometimes it's pumped first into a gravity sewer. Other times it just ends up there completely by gravity, but there's a large lift station at near the corner of 82 and 57. And there are 2 transmission lines that go north about 15 miles, roughly follow 301, but not exactly, and end up at the Avon Lake Treatment Plant. From that point, the discharge is about 1,200 feet out into Lake Erie and about 30 feet down. And it's diffused and baffled. And from that point then quickly mixes in with the current of Lake Erie, which is not really a lake. It kind of looks like one, but it's a big wide river. And the currents then just quickly dissipate the effluent discharge that's already been treated. So as opposed to, and I'm not familiar Grafton's operation exactly where their outfall is from the treatment plant, but it goes into the Black River. In Avon Lake's case, it does not. It goes through that pipe and out into Lake Erie. So.
Okay, so is there an environmental advantage in pumping it to Lake Erie versus the Black River?
Yes, as opposed to being a point source discharge into the Black River and impacting vegetation and wildlife, it goes out into Lake Erie and is within, I'm sure there are models exist, but I don't have them, but within a short distance of that outfall is essentially you would not even by testing know that outfall was there. So.
Let me ask it in a way maybe I can understand. Is there a value in diluting that effluent as soon and as quickly as possible?
Well, it's much less toxic a shorter distance away from where it flows out of the pipe.
So if it were pumped into Lake Erie, it's much less toxic than being pumped into the Black River simply because there's much more volume of water to dilute it. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If the annexation is permitted, would LUCO oppose the change to the sewer service area at Nowaka?
Yes.
And in your experience, how long does it take for Nowaka to decide on such a service change area? Is there a timeline?
Well, I mean, it's not so much how long it takes to decide, but how long it takes to go through the process when all parties are not in agreement, which NOACA requires. NOACA requires parties to be in agreement. We're just now moving forward with a facility planning area change because one of the affected entities no longer objects, and there were only one affected entity that did not object and 4 that were in agreement, but it ground to a halt because of that objection, and that was filed in March of 18. So
5 years ago.
It'd be 3.
3 years ago.
Yes, 3.
As you can tell, I didn't get a degree in math. Does it appear this particular change meets the requirements for a sewer service area change under NOACA's rules?
No, it does not.
Okay, and that's one of the things NOACA, you would argue in opposing it.
Well, the opposition itself, if there is an affected entity that objects by NOACA's own policy and implementation of the Clean Water, the 208 plan, that all affected entities have to support, or else NOACA will not move a request forward.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Counsel?
Very quickly.
Morning again, Mr. Toy.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
You had voice your opinion about the differences between the procedure in one case where the annexation does not go through and the parcel remains in Eaton, which we wouldn't need the request, right? And the other is if the annexation is granted, you said, tell me if I'm wrong, you said Eaton would have a voice with after annexation, they basically would have no formal voice in the proceeding. Is that correct?
They would not be an affected jurisdiction as
And
defined
you
by
testified that
NOACA.
they would not be able to submit a formal say to NOACA. Is that right, or am I missing that?
No, well, if I stated that, I apologize, or if that was your understanding, I apologize. As an affected jurisdiction, the entity seeking the change is required to solicit support from all affected jurisdictions.
That's right, that's what you said. So there would be support, if the annexation were to go through, you'd lose the support of Eaton before NOACA, right, or the ability to have that?
Well, it's not something I would lose, it's something that NOACA would no longer require.
And that would be something that would support your case for keeping the territory, correct? Would be support from Eaton, right?
I mean, I don't,
Would you prefer Eaton?
it doesn't hurt for them
Okay.
to not support it.
All right. So conversely, not having that support could arguably benefit KNG in its quest to leave NOACA, correct? Or, I'm sorry, to leave Lorco, correct?
I'm not sure I follow. I apologize. I understand you want to move this forward, but I want to stand.
No, I
I
understand.
answer correctly.
What I'm saying is that, just to cut to the chase, is that KNG wants to employ everything possible to make it easier for them to leave Lorco. That's what they want to do because of the current infrastructure. Do you believe that that having this annexation will make that easier for KNG to leave Lorco because of the infrastructure that's in place now?
I don't think it'll have a material effect, no.
Okay. We had this email that was that you had sent to Chris Howard and Kevin Flanagan. And we received that after and during the last hearing, right? It was an email where you made these offers. You just spoke to it earlier. I'm just trying to catch you up to the testimony.
Yeah, I'm not sure when you received it, but, I mean, there were, after meetings, as I recall, in 2018, with Mr. Flanagan, there was follow-up both with his design professional and with him.
Right, in that regard, that was with regard to some ideas that Lorco had for how they would try to facilitate a new lift station for KNG for Phase 3, right?
Either a lift station, we had indicated.
Or a grinder pump, but you
Correct.
preferred the lift station, right? You said that in that email. correct?
Yes, I mean, it's,
That's-
yeah.
And
I'm going to object. I want to move it along too, but should let him answer the question.
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in the email, we did indicate a preference for a lift station, preference being that that's one point of maintenance potentially as opposed to 55. But we also have projects that we have done looking at the financial impact of a lift station versus grinder pumps and gone with individual on-site grinder pumps.
Right, and all that said, that the conclusion was that Lorco would prefer a lift station, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, you had said there's two ways we could do that. We can either do it as a developer project where KNG were to build the lift station to Lorco's specifications, or it could be a Lorco project, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm not trying to trick you here, so I'm just letting you know if I say
Counsel?
if I'm saying it right.
Do you have the email, sir?
I believe I do.
It's
Is
a
it,
previous exhibit. I can give him
If you
another
give him a
copy of
copy,
it.
that might make it a little bit easier for
That's
him to
fine.
understand what you're doing. I thought it was at the podium. My apologies.
thank you.
And your email's just on that first page there,
Okay.
Mr. Toy. Okay, so you give these two options, and you just testified that it would be paid, it would be at no cost to the developer, right? So no cost to KNG, correct?
Correct.
Or it could be arranged that way, correct? And That would be paid for by increased tap fees for those 55 homes, though, wouldn't it?
Not by increased tap fees, but by crediting against those tap fees the cost of either building the lift station or installing.
So those tap fees would remain $8,000 or approximately?
Yes,
Okay. And do you know what Grafton's tap-in fees are for their sewer?
I
They're
do not.
1,800, right?
They could well be. I'd have to ask Joe.
Okay. Now, to just quickly go to the effluent, you're not contending that Grafton's wastewater treatment plant releases water that's not up to EPA standards, correct?
Oh, I am not, no.
No. So that water is clean up to EPA standards and all the other government regulatory, or it has to be, right? Or they'll get cited, correct?
It should be.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So you're not contending that cities like Elyria in our community that have their own wastewater treatment plants are doing anything damaging to the environment, are you? Or that Grafton is?
All wastewater plants are doing things that are
Beyond
damaging
that
to
which
the
is permitted
environment.
by the
but,
law.
Yeah, let him finish.
all wastewater plants by nature pollute. It's just they pollute in accordance with a discharge permit. So
Okay.
I assume if Grafton and others, and including Avon Lake, there are just permit limits they're required to maintain, so.
So that water would have to, there are standards that Avon Lake has to meet, Grafton has to meet, Elyria has to meet, somewhere in, Columbus has to meet.
Yes.
Correct? It's uniform standards, correct?
They're not uniform. I mean, depending on the plant and the amount of discharge, I mean, the limits they're all different from one
But
plant
they all
to another.
require, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, they all require the water to be sufficiently clean to pass government muster, correct?
They do, yes.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at, I'm sorry. I don't have anything further for him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Redirect? Oh, I'm sorry. Redirect?
Let me try to clarify this. You're going to oppose the change in the service area at Nowaka, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you win that opposition to the service area change without Eaton Township's opposition to it?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you,
It's similar to what he was asking. Do you need Eaton Township's opposition to that service area change in order to win at Nowaka?
no.
That's all I wanted. Thank you.
I assume no recross? Hold on a second. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, if I could, for Mr. Toy. Mr. Toy, thanks for being here today. To be candid with you, I'm always trying to figure out what the working relationship is with Avon Lake Regional. And so when you talked about it's a position of Lorco regarding these, putting in these lift stations or grinder pumps or whatever, who's making that final decision? Is it Lorco? Is in consultation with Avon Lake?
Yeah, our sanitary engineer is a staff engineer for Avon Lake Regional Water, and his advice would be sought, and on this, depending on whether service of this area by Lorco would move forward with a lift station or individual grinder units, would be we would seek input from our sanitary engineer, who is an employee and a staff engineer at Avon Lake. So I'm not sure I answered that. I mean, there is a cooperative agreement between the two parties, between Avon Lake and Lorco, for financing, operation, maintenance, treatment. It just covers, it's 30-plus page document. It's very complex, but on something like this, were we to move forward with a project, it would be after discussion and a consensus reached between myself, their utilities executive, and our respective boards.
And if I could follow up, I know as a member of this board, anytime I speak to people in the public, I always tell them I can't speak for the board. I'm only one member of the board, something that I think anybody who serves on any board or council or whatever has to always understand. So I guess I'm looking for clarification. Did the board give approval for you to say that in fact Lorco can and will put in these lift stations and grinder pumps?
Well, the board is aware of the discussions, but when the communication that was attempted with the developer's design professional and then finally with the developer himself, when we left that out there as a possibility of either a lift station or an individual grinder use, and this is how we would accomplish it, and had no response, yes or no, from the developer, then we did not take action on a board because it didn't make sense, because the developer had not indicated one way or the other if he was in favor of it. So I guess to ask, did the Lorco board ever take action? No, because, we didn't get any positive or negative response back from the developer.
Okay. And please understand, I'm trying to get clarity. I'm not picking on you today because I really am confused as to what this working relationship is. I've never really been straight on it, and I've yet to have anybody really be able to explain it to me. So if the board were to go forward with putting in the lift stations, the grinder pumps, and you indicated that, you have an agreement with Avon Lake, who's responsible for the financing? Lorco or Avon Lake, and who votes on that matter?
Well, all things financial, operation, maintenance, and treatment are all covered under the cooperative agreement. So the cooperative agreement spells out, how revenues are accounted for and how expenses are accounted for. I will say that if either board, if the Lorco board were not in favor of moving forward with it, it would not happen. And if Avon Lake were not in favor of it, it would not end up moving forward either.
Okay. And the only reason I'm bringing this up, as I said, I don't know what the working relationship is, and I think it's noticeable the absence of anyone here from Avon Lake, unless their board had said that you could speak on their behalf. With the way this partnership is, it still sounds like whether Lorco wants to do it or not, it still has to be worked out with Avon Lake Regional, and that there's really two boards here. And at the same time, the board didn't necessarily say that they will, in fact, move forward with the lift station or grinder pump. I'm just trying to get clarification here.
Well, they did not say they would move forward, either the Lorco board or Avon Lake, because essentially at this point there's nothing to move forward from. We have said we had offered this as a possibility, but without a positive or negative response from the developer, there's nothing to move forward with.
So if you moved forward with it, who would do the financing? Is it Lorco? Is it Avon Lake? Who carries the notes?
If we would, we being Lorco, we had a similar project off of Banks Road in Carlisle Township, smaller than this, but 16 sublots. We were asked by the bank to install sewers. We looked at both gravity and grinder pumps. We did that. Lorco applied for and received money from the Ohio Water Development Authority, and that is paid back as a special assessment. So that, I don't know if it would get financed exactly that way or not, but that's the way we have done one most recently.
And who sends out the bill?
Who sends out the bill, like our
the
customer bills?
Right.
That is done through the office on Miller Road up in Avon Lake.
Okay. As I said, I'm just trying to get clarification because, you're here today, Avon Lake's not here. I almost feel like it's two boards needing to make a decision. So I'm just trying to get clarification on who's actually able to say yes, up or down.
And you had asked earlier, if I can clarify, I believe something to the effect of, did I have the authority or the ability to speak for Avon Lake? I can assure you they have not given me that. They have not given me that
I'd be surprised if you heard
authority,
otherwise.
so-
Right?
Yes,
Okay, I was just trying to get clarification.
thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Toy.
Anything else from the commissioners?
Yes. Mr. Toy, so you're talking about the possibility of installing a lift station and grinder pumps, and I understand where Commissioner Lundy's going with this. Somebody has to pay for it, somebody has to finance it. So when you're talking about tap-in fees, is a tap-in fee for Lorco across the board the same number that it is for everybody? Or are you, what is the tap-in fee for somebody who's building a house in this development?
In all of our Lorraine County, in the districts, either in Carlisle or Eaton, the tap fee is $8,000. We have, in our sewer district that we have in Ashland County, we have no tap fee there because we receive revenue from vacant lots monthly. So in other words, I didn't want to say, yes, it's all the same, and then have someone say, well, wait a minute, you don't have a tap fee in Ashland County. That's a little different because we receive revenue there monthly from vacant lots. But in the Phase 1 area, Eaton and Carlisle, all of our tap fees across the board there are $8,000.
So per home that goes in, it would be an $8,000 charge to the homeowner?
Correct.
In their financing?
Yes.
Okay, so would I be, tell me if it's reasonable from what you were talking about with the financing, would there then be an assessment on those homeowners to pay more for this lift station and grinder pumps on top of that $8,000?
No, and if I could clarify, or not correct, but I wanted to clarify, because I think Commissioner Lundy may have said lift station and grinder pumps. They're one or the other.
Okay.
A lift
Understand.
station is one larger concrete vault that's in the ground that typically has a duplex or two pumps in it. That the development would flow by gravity to this lift station and then get pumped into our system, as opposed to individual on-site grinder pumps that are a crock that's, it's about 3 feet in diameter, typically sits out by the road, has a 6-inch lateral going to it from the house, and then there's what's called a low-pressure force main that all of the homes within that subdivision would go into, and then
Okay.
that force main is under
I
pressure.
understand what you're saying. So my question would be, whichever one it is there a possibility that there would be an additional assessment on these homeowners down the road
No.
to finance this? Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Anything further from the board?
Sounds pretty, just so I can jump in. I have a feeling what happened, and maybe I'm speaking out of school, 8,000 versus 1,800. That's probably why they didn't reach back out to you. Think that's a valid statement?
No, I don't,
You don't? I
because,
see lots of nodding heads.
well, 8,000 versus 1,800,
Per
but
household.
yes, for the $8,000 tap fee, those homes would remain in Eaton Township, which has no income tax.
Right.
If it is 1,800 with, I don't know, Grafton's percent and a half
Right.
to whatever it is, in a short period of time, each one of those households. So looking at the tap fee in a vacuum and in that box, certainly I'm not going to try to argue with you that 8,000 is not greater than 1,800.
Right.
But I would argue that for a household with income of $100,000 that would pay Eaton Township zero income tax, or would pay Grafton, again, whatever it is, in a few short years, that person not paying income tax would be financially ahead.
Right, but that's if come for the people living there, not the developer itself. The developer, that's why a lot of us will move to townships to save money on taxes, correct? I mean, that's what, that and lifestyle. But
Well,
the
at
bottom
the-
line is, if you're a developer, that's why, because it made it sound like nobody moved after, in 2018, when everybody started talking, then you said they've never responded back. And maybe this is why I shouldn't assume. I think it was an $8,000 versus $1,800 decision. It sounds like, I could be wrong, but that's what it sounds like. I'm not debating whether or not it's,
Well, at the end of the day, though, it's not Lorco, it's not Grafton, it's not even K&G. It's the people buying the house.
correct.
And that person buying a house, my point is that if I'm buying a house and I have a choice of an $8,000 tap fee, but 0% income tax, or an $1,800 tap fee and a 1.5% income tax, I'll take the $8,000 tap fee every time. So,
Thank you, sir. I think we're done.
okay, thank you.
You want to leave the email up there, that might be helpful.
Okay.
Someone's copy.
Mr. Van Hoos is not in the room, correct?
That's the fire chief counsel.
I can't.
Well, I want to let the commissioners know, I had planned to have a fire person here and also Mr. Van Hoos. That would be 2 extra witnesses. I'm going to waive those, so that'll hurry it along. And this is my final witness. So would you state your name for the record, please?
Are we okay without a break for a little bit?
I'm good, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. State your name for the record, please.
Jason Monchine,
You've been a trustee in Eaton Township how long?
since 2014.
Okay. And are you here today to oppose the annexation?
Yes.
Do you see any advantages to this annexation, or from this annexation, to the remaining area of Eaton Township within a half a mile of this annexation?
Did you ask any benefits?
Yeah.
No,
Do
none.
you see any detriments to the one-half area? And I'm only talking about the statutory definition, 1/2 mile from the area to be annexed in Eaton Township.
Yes.
What are the detriments?
As I spoke on last meeting before the continuance, Lorco payers are only in Eaton Carlisle. It's been mentioned a few times today. Eaton being the largest, me being one of those Lorco payers. At the end of the day, we all should be in front of NOACA right now instead of begging and pleading for you guys to give leverage to the Village of Grafton. It's a detriment that township residents throughout Eaton and a part of Carlisle pay into the system, and the only parts of the board in the county that are represented on the Lorco board are paid by Eaton and Carlisle residents, majority of Eaton residents. It's a detriment when anytime you move the corporation line into the township further, especially with a regular annexation, you impinge on those residents' township ways, whether it's simply burning, you're changing the effectiveness off their property by 1,000 feet. If they're within 1,000 feet of a corporation limit, it's different than me that sits in the middle of the township, bordering no incorporated area. Taking away property taxes from the township and other things that have been mentioned. Fire levy, 55 homes that would pay additional into the fire levy of Eaton Township, property taxes of Eaton Township. For what? This is a 5-year, that's why I touched on the fire department. 5 years back. We have given mutual aid to the Village of Grafton 30 times. We have called them twice in 5 years.
I'm just gonna voice my objection to the
Understood.
report. I don't know if it's complete. I have no.
We've talked about this, I understand it.
That's fine. I just wanted to say it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not going to mark that as an exhibit, so based on your experience as a township trustee, how many times in the last 5 years has your fire department asked for mutual aid or received mutual aid from Grafton?
Received mutual aid 2 times in 5 years.
Okay, and how many times have you
One
given?
of those times, I probably personally called them for a squad because we were on a structure fire with the city of Ridgeville, Columbia Township, Carlisle Township, and Grafton Township. Every other jurisdiction was already in our township, and I called them. They were on the way back from the hospital for a patient. Their squad was on the way back, so they were in the area.
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt. So I think the question I was going to ask is, how many times has your fire department provided mutual aid to the Village of Grafton in the last 5 years?
That report was straight from the chief's desk 30 times
Okay.
in 5 years.
And to save time, I didn't ask for your educational background, but tell us your experience in the fire service.
I have a bachelor's degree from Ashland University in criminal justice. I started at Eaton in 2006. Still remain on the roster in Eaton. I work part-time for LaGrange as a firefighter, paramedic, and a full-time firefighter serving as a lieutenant in the city of Tiffin. I also served as a lieutenant in 2011 in Eaton Township, and in 2016, captain, resigning just in 2020 as a captain back to a regular fireman.
Okay,
So I
so
still work for all 3 fire departments, yes.
Okay, so not only are you trained, but you have experience as a lieutenant in those departments.
Yes, and a captain with Eaton that I
Thank you.
recently resigned in.
Okay. And in your position that you just described and experience in the fire service, let's concentrate a little bit on the fire service that Eaton provides. Do you provide full-time manning of your station,
24-hour manning of the station, yes,
7 days a week?
correct.
What does Grafton do?
Unstaffed stations, including the station they mentioned that was 0.3 miles away. I believe that's also actually a rental hall as well for parties and graduations, but there's a fire truck parked there. I could park a fire truck in the neighbor's barn across the street from this development and say I have a fire department close to. So unmanned compared to manned.
Okay, and what about are your people full-time fire personnel?
Everybody is paid per hour. There is no union full-time representation on Eaton Township, no.
Okay, they're paid. What about Grafton? What type of firemen do they use?
I would imagine they're paid per call, but it'd be considered volunteer.
Considered volunteer, but they get paid or reimbursed per call?
I would imagine, yes.
Okay. And since the station isn't manned, do they have to first report to the station, then go on a call? And let's start with fire calls.
Yes, you would typically head to the station to pick up an apparatus because you don't know if anybody else is coming to go direct to scene. Maybe once you hear an apparatus en route, they may go direct to scene.
Okay, and
Not
how about
familiar
EMS? How do they respond to EMS when they don't fully staff the stations?
Well, Mr. Price had mentioned that they have a backup service last time, and you had kind of said, well, that's mutual aid, isn't it? But in fact, there really is, you could even say it's their primary service. This goes back to when Grafton said they could handle the prisons better to the Board of Commissioners sitting up here in the 80s. What did they do? They contracted with Life Care. Life Care has been running primary services at the prisons since the late 80s. And every day, I believe, unless it's changed, so I don't want to speak the exact hours, but from my recollection, it always seemed to be a 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. automatic dispatch. If they get a call, they're toning out their personnel, but Life Care is also coming to the Village of Grafton until they are called off, or else they end up being primary if no one shows up.
Okay. Based on
Although
your...
the prisons, they don't even respond to, they don't even get toned out to, just Life Care goes.
Okay. Based on your experience in the fire service and your education, do you believe that this annexation will result in any benefit or in terms of the quality of fire service provided to the area to be annexed?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay. And will it provide a detriment to the unincorporated area within half a mile of the area to be annexed, remaining in the township due to the loss of income tax to fund the fire service in the township?
Sure, 55 homes only helps spread out the cost to the people already in the township that are paying into that fire levy.
Okay. Are there other detriments to the unincorporated area of the township within half a mile?
I could get into this road agreement that they proposed for the commissioners to sign, but
We'll do that at the end, if that's
Okay.
okay. Are the township trustees satisfied with the service provided by rural water to that mile area of the township from the annexation area?
yes, we are.
Are you satisfied with the service provided by rural electric to that same area?
Yes, I am a Ohio Edison customer in my part of the township, but prior, my parents were part of the co-op of Lorraine Rural Medina Electric, and I think most of those people are actually happier in the co-op than I may be in Ohio Edison's jurisdiction in my part of the township.
Okay. And are you satisfied as a township trustee with the service provided by Lorco to to the area of the township 1/2 mile from the annexation area?
Yes, after the initial installation, I know of no problems.
Okay. Mr. Toy had mentioned that the township does not have an income tax, and of course, none of them do, but the village does. Do you know what the village income tax rate is now at this point?
I am not familiar with they pay Rita.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do know they have an income tax?
Yes.
Okay. And now let's get into that road service agreement. My legal argument against that, as you know, is that statute says it has to be as a condition of annexation, and the paperwork doesn't say anything about being a condition of annexation. But you had some other issues with regard to that, so why don't you explain those to the commissioners at this point, please?
Briefly touched on this last time. Overall, I feel it's just a manifesto for future annexation is what they sent to you. I had mentioned the turn lane last time, but if you're going to get something out of it, let me talk about these that I've seen in the past. Chestnut Ridge being a good example. So there was an annexation by Elyria. You go down Chestnut Ridge where Elyria is supposed to be doing the maintenance that took over the county road. Well, the county's out there patching, fixing pretty regularly. But when I'm going through where Elyria is supposed to be proposed, where that changed from all county to now split jurisdictions, that's where you run into some of your road problems. If I was the county, I would at least get something more out of this. Make them pave all the way to 82. It's all village residents coming, because I think we heard last time about these residents would help Grafton businesses. You think it's in Eaton Township, they're still going to go to Grafton Village businesses unless they keep this kind of stuff up. Yes, we have residents that don't go to the village for things they've done here. But these residents aren't going to be familiar with any spats between two jurisdictions. They'd still go to village businesses. They're just naturally closer. But ultimately, they're using Durkee Road to get to Chestnut Commons and Walmart. Make a mill and pave 2 inches all the way down that county road if they want to start taking over some of the township and county, and we're one unincorporated area part of the county. Make them pave that county road for you. At least going northbound. Their residents are the ones coming out of there. Get something out of it.
Okay. And you had sat through the hearing on April 6th. Did you hear any benefits at all to the area to be annexed?
No, I've heard none. Unless you want me to, as nice as I can say, that this seems to be about whether it's the developer's pocketbook or he's also been lied to by the Village of Grafton with promises, and now we're finding them out as we come up here that none of these utilities can be met within a reasonable time frame. They can't give you an approximate start. So no, I know of none.
Life is pretty harsh, is it
I
not?
want to object to the allegations about Grafton.
Commissioners, we can let them do their,
Yeah,
that's pretty harsh
language here.
let them do their thing, and then we'll ask questions. But under noted, go ahead.
That's actually, was there anything else you wanted to say to the commissioners? That's all the questions I had, but
No, that just, if I may, looking at the statutes, they're not met. I've already repeated them last time. They can't give you an approximate date. I'll just go through them. Water said they'll sue them. This happened before in Fox Run in 96, I think, 95. That was a Flanagan development. I mean, we should be pretty familiar that it's water's territory, rural water's not giving it up. Electric, we heard them say, they'll fight them, they'll fight to keep their territory. People part of the co-op in the township are happy with that. Sewer, which I think is the whole main reason we're here. Well, let's go to Nowaka, let's end this right now, and let's go to Nowaka and see if anything's gonna be switched. 'Cause otherwise, worst case scenario, you just let it go to Grafton, take away the property taxes within the township, but they're still stuck on Lorco's system. Police and fire, I've already given my example of how much we still provide the services down there. We're very happy with Lorraine County Sheriff. I again thank the commissioners for adding another deputy to the road with the budget. We have a neighboring jurisdiction here that decided to attend because when Grafton, who I'm sure will love to ask me questions, talks about collaboration, they don't know of any, I don't know of any. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. We don't need them for this, so there was never no communications about a JED for this particular property. Why does he say it's in secret? Because we're in the 9th District Court of Appeals with this jurisdiction. So that's the only reason JED talk really came up. So understand that. And why are we there? Because they tried to annex something back in the 80s. They said they wanted to annex, and they brought it in front of Mr. Lundy and your prior board, and we had to go to court over it. You've also been told before by the Village of Grafton they'd put a safe route to school, to Midview in 2016. Love an update on it. There's no safe route to school. All it is to annex Midview schools. That's all it was for. Said it back then.
Let's stay on the.
Yes, sorry.
We're gonna be here all day and I'm gonna get really.
Yep.
Let me ask you one other question. We kind of I think you're referring generically to a JED, but when you talked about cooperative agreements, there are other cooperative agreements other than a JED that could occur in an annexation. There could be an annexation agreement, for example. Is that right?
Yes.
Any discussion with Grafton Village about any annexation agreement dealing with this issue so the commissioners wouldn't have to go through these?
No, every time we meet Grafton is either in this room or we were forced to mediation to try and work out something from this room.
Okay. There's also a community economic development agreement possibility that does allow for residential areas an agreement that would avoid annexation. Any discussion with Grafton regarding a CEDA?
No, none of their elected officials ever are present, so
Okay. Well, that's all I have then for this witness. I thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure there's cross.
I'm actually gonna keep it pretty light if I can. Mr. Manchin, you're not an attorney, are you?
nope.
Okay. So, do you think it's fair that perhaps the interpretations of these statutes could be left to legal counsel as opposed to opined here?
I think while Dan is advising the commissioners on what those statutes are, I'm
Understood.
explaining
Thank
to how I see them, and I've been through these before.
Well,
So-
speaking of that, are you aware that for LMRE, once a parcel is annexed in, PUCO has no authority to enforce the boundaries of LMRE because the Ohio Constitution gives the municipality the exclusive right to service electricity. Did you know
I don't
that?
believe that's what the gentleman here last meeting had said. so-
I don't believe that he did either.
Yeah, so I'm
But I
not
will-
going to speak on
Okay.
that. I'll let you keep.
We will
Hold on-
introduce
hold on a
evidence.
second. Everybody, breathe deep. Question, answer. Right? It's hard in this context because we're used to conversing like normal human beings, but we can't do that here. And as we
Understood.
speed up, let's slow it down so everybody can hear what's being said.
Right, I'm trying to speed things.
I know you
down,
are.
so,
I
yeah.
apologized early. Jason, I apologize also. I appreciate everybody trying to move quickly, but let's make sure we're getting an answer and a question.
If I might, could I suggest, and you don't have to do this, obviously, but We're gonna probably wanna do a brief anyway. Could we address the legal stuff in the briefs, maybe, and that would save
Well,
some time?
And I'd hold on a second, Al. I'll agree with that, except that Jason testified quite a lot about his opinion on legal issues. Council give him a little bit of room to do that, but yeah, at the end of the day, I'm gonna advise the board on what the legal issues are. If that's not clear, it should be now, so, go ahead.
Yeah, that was just to refute what was said.
I
but-
understand, that's what I'm just. so
Thank
we know.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Attorney Petticourt. You're not aware of any conversations between Rural Water and KNG or the Village of Grafton that occurred after Attorney Dooley's letter was written, are you? You're not aware whether those happened or not? Is that fair?
I know nothing from the rural water angle that
Okay.
there was talks of any agreements or giving up their parcel.
Thank you. And you talk about the detriment to Lorco, okay? To the customers of Lorco, more accurately, right? That you guys all pitch into Lorco, and if you sever 55 houses, they're not paying into Lorco, and it makes your rates, your share isn't reduced. Is that kind of what you were saying?
I'm saying that in Lorraine County, Eaton Township, and part of Carlisle, I'm guessing you on Lorco and Carlisle? I know you're asking the questions, I'm not
No,
trying
it's
to-
fine. My parcel's septic still. We don't
Okay,
have, I'm
all
on
right,
Robson,
so-
they don't come down.
So yes,
there
but
that way.
besides that we're the only ones, that support Lorco paying their bills from Avon
Right.
Lake or loans.
So the more the merrier, is that fair?
I think that's fair to say,
Okay. depending
where you go with it.
That's fine. But, always that, right? Mr. Flanagan testified that if this annexation is not granted, there is a significant chance that this 55 homes will not be built. If that ends up being true, there's no impact on Lorco, correct? Because there's no homes to service there.
Well, at the end of the day, then, it'd still be Lorco's district, it'd still be in Eaton Township, and I'd imagine he's gonna sell that property off to another developer, and then we'll have them built in
You
Eaton Township.
assume that, but farmland does not need sewers, correct?
It currently does not right now, no.
And, well, that doesn't matter. That's fine. You're a township guy, I'm a township guy. Township people like their freedom, right? We like the government to stay out of our business as much as is possible, correct?
I'd say it's fair to say for most township residents.
And most township residents, and I'm asking you, I mean, do you believe that government is in the best position to make business decisions for people, or do you think those business people are in a better position to do that?
Depends on the topic. But I would say I like a businessman that's a politician, if this is going anywhere.
Ask stupid questions.
Was that a
with stupid
compliment?
Yeah, that's fine.
Was that a compliment?
Right.
You wouldn't like somebody telling you what you could do with your land, would you?
Depends on what it is.
I don't have anything for you. Thank you.
Is there any redirect? Commissioners?
Yeah, if I could, and thank you, trustee, and I always have great respect for you. Every time you roll in the room, you're doing your homework, very passionate and advocating for your community, and I have great respect for that. I wanted to ask you, you had said there was discussion about, possibly a JED, whether that would be entertained. And I guess I'm getting conflicting signals here because, I'm hearing it said that by being in a township, you're not subject to the income tax. However, you do know when there's a JED, there's an opportunity for an income tax. So is it the interest of your community that if there was a JED that you would collect income tax?
So, we have JEDs with Elyria. Remember, when the prior party from Grafton had mentioned JEDs and our attorney was talking about JED, that was in a mediation, and technically, yes, it is confidential, but I feel that you should know that that's the only reason the talks were happening. But that was not about any of these residential property here we're talking about. Prior to just getting something mailed, just like you guys would have got notification that there's a petition filed with the county, no talks could be worked out with anybody if my first notice is that there's an annexation filed. But again, no talk about a JED here. There wouldn't be, at least with a JED, because if that was brought to me, it's residential, and we have sewer, water, and electric, police and fire already there. So it kind of inviting themselves to a party that they're not needed at, in simple terms.
Anything further from the commissioner?
I guess, if I could just state, I was a little taken back by the use of the word lie. That's, my opinion here today. Obviously, I think that's a pretty strong word anytime it's brought up. Even when I have the strongest disagreements, I try not to use the word. The sad part today is that, we're having discussions about mutual aid. And, and I can tell you, I'm not thrilled when, the sheriff's department's brought up here to talk about, police protection and, whether this department's better than the other. I don't think, any police department should be put on the spot like that to be asked that question. We have mutual aid in this county, and that should suffice with that question. We shouldn't run into a situation where we're bringing in a representative of the sheriff's department or Grafton or any community in this county. We have mutual aid, and I think everybody who works in that takes it seriously. You being on, the front line working as a firefighter, you also know that when it comes to mutual aid with fire, we shouldn't be keeping scorecards, So I understand you're presenting your case, that I'm not directing anything towards you. I'm just saying in general, we shouldn't be keeping scorecards on mutual aid either. So
Just
because
remember, that's just out of the computer
Right,
system. That's
right.
no mark of,
But I'm saying, as well as I do, and I'm sure you would say it's correct, that if you got a call from Grafton every day saying we need mutual aid, you'd be there. Or if you need it every single day, hopefully Grafton would be there. I would hope there's that understanding. So, and this is what I don't like about annexations. I had to deal with this in Columbus and even closer to it here at home. These discussions always get to be quite heated. And, the bottom line is you guys are neighbors, man. You share borders. You got to work together. You got to have mutual aid. And so I just get a little concerned when the temperature comes up in the room like it comes up. Who's better than somebody else? And, the bottom line is that the mutual aid's always going to be there. You jump to help Grafton, like that. Grafton would jump to help you. Sheriff's Department's always going to be there. Police in any jurisdiction around here are going to be there for the Sheriff's Department, whatever it may be. The mutual aid's going to be there. So I just wish we didn't even have this discussion. When this is all over, everybody's still got to work together. And it's just not good. The temperature right now just needs to be brought down, and some of the questions need to be just thrown out the window. But those are just some of my thoughts. And thank you, trustee.
Is
and
there anything further from the board at this point?
Commissioner Lundy, I respect everything you said. Remember, though, I'm not trying to tout a card or who went more. I'm just trying to prove that there's no benefit by going into that jurisdiction.
I believe that, thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes your case in chief, correct, counsel?
It does, except potentially for closing argument, which I almost never waive, but I'm inclined to do it to move this along.
I'm inclined for you to waive it too, so.
Yeah, if we can do a 1 week to do a brief, I think I can achieve the same thing in writing.
We have 2 rebuttal witnesses.
That's right.
Okay, let's
Do them now?
do them. I guess now would be a good time for a break if we want. We probably got another,
Up to you, Teresa.
council's okay and the witnesses are here. I'd rather power through and get, like I said, I did not anticipate this would take this amount of time this morning.
You say that every time.
I do. And I'm still surprised. I've been in more depositions. than we're gonna-
Dan's a rookie at this, you gotta.
We are nothing if not verbose, right?
It's
in this
absolutely,
profession?
and I've done it myself, and I hate myself for it, so.
Well, we're going to be quick here, much as we can. Can you state your name for the record?
Sure. Chris Howard,
Vice President and part owner, Bramhall Engineering and Surveying.
Mr. Howard, can you take your
I'm
mask
gonna-
Oh, I'm sorry, sure, yep.
Mr. Howard, I believe you were sworn last time, is that correct?
I was sworn this morning.
You were sworn this morning, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
And you said you're the co-owner of Bramhall
Yeah,
Engineering?
Vice President and part owner, Bramhall Engineering, 801 Moore Road, Avon.
Okay, let's just cut to the chase here. You have done work for K&G.
Correct.
Did you design Fiddler's Green?
We designed phase 1 through 3, correct.
And now phase 4, have you done any work on phase 4?
We've done preliminary conceptual layouts, correct.
All right. Were you involved in sewer design in phases 1 through 3?
Yes.
When did the plan for the lift station that's currently there, when did that come about and when was that installed? 2 questions.
It was designed in, with phase 1, and it was installed in 2005,
Was that during phase 1?
correct.
Okay. Did that lift station at that time, the way it was designed, have capacity for the eventual phase 4?
It was designed for phase 1 through 3 and service for the Eaton Township property, correct.
Capacity for it. Was there a cost savings that occurred by building a lift station that would service Grafton for all 4 phases as opposed to building a second lift station to be able to connect to Lorco's existing infrastructure?
Yes, building 1 is obviously cheaper than building 2 pump stations.
There's an email, it's probably on your, I don't know if the commissioners wanted it or not. I'm trying to go quick here, but there was an email that was distributed at our first hearing by counsel for Eaton that appears to purport to be an email communication between you and Gene Toy of Lorco. I've shown you that correspondence. Do you recall seeing it?
Yes,
Okay. Was that a full transcript of the conversations that K&G, Bramhall, and Lorco had?
it was not.
Okay. Were in fact their emails, within that email chain,
Yes.
additional emails that weren't shown?
Yes.
I think you have this. You do. I don't know if the commissioners want to.
Just the entire email chain?
Get it to Dan.
Do you have it? You'll have it?
Yeah.
Mark it.
No. Mark it as D, I believe we're on. Actually, I don't have mine on.
You want to mark it? It's the one that was tabled back that we were talking about earlier. You got one of these?
Yes, please.
They're stapled upside down.
Well, we can deal with that.
At least
We'll
they
deal.
say. Teresa's at the. Thank you.
Is this in order?
Thank you for the indulgence, commissioners.
Mine are actually stapled perfectly.
Oh, well.
Mine is stapled perfectly. What about yours, Teresa?
Well, upside down they are.
Okay.
Me?
Mr. Howard, can you look at the page,
Mine's the only one that was the right way.
can you look at the last, page 6 of that exhibit? Do you see email that begins December 8, 2017?
Yes,
Who is that email from?
that is from me
To?
to Mr. Toy and Mr. Danielson.
Okay, Mr. Toy of Lorco, and who just spoke, and Mr. Danielson of Avon Lake
Correct.
Water? Okay. And what, the first sentence is per our last meeting. What does that mean?
So prior to this email, in October of 2017, we had a meeting at Mr. Flanagan's office with Mr. Toy and Mr. Danielson regarding this project and
Okay.
sewer service.
And what was the purpose of that meeting?
Just open discussions about the project.
So is it your position that Bramhall and K&G never excluded Lorco from any communication
Absolutely
regarding the
not.
project?
No.
And did that commentary continue?
Yes,
Or
over
did
the
that
next
discussion-
couple months, correct.
And then the final email that Lorco did provide to the commissioners on April 16th, there are some options given by Lorco. Now, how did you interpret that?
We interpreted it as Lorco was giving Mr. Flanagan the option to either they would install the pump station or he could install it with some reduced tap fees.
And was that attractive?
At the time, Mr. Flanagan was investigating the cost to see what was beneficial.
Would that have required more building on the land and more preparation, et cetera?
Correct.
And would that also result in an increased tap fee over Grafton for Lorco, for the residents?
Correct. There was concern about how that would be paid for.
And was your opinion that there was already a lift station that would handle this?
Correct.
At the lower tap? And that was that the first time you heard from Lorco about installing a new lift station?
The email, yes, dated April 16th or,
And at that time, was the lift station designed by your company, installed by Mr. Flanagan? Was that already in the ground at that point?
yes, it was.
And that had the capacity to service the additional
Correct.
land? Is a grinder pump or a pump station a more expensive option?
Pump station is more expensive.
And was it your understanding that's what Lorco preferred?
Correct.
Is it your opinion that the parcel and homes that someone has been involved with this project would be better served by connecting with that additional lift station?
It would make sense to tie into the existing pump station within the Village of Grafton.
Are there concerns beyond the initial construction of a lift station that arise by adding a second?
Well, a lift station is a mechanical system, so it does require maintenance, and there are long-term costs, so having one pump station makes sense as opposed to two.
I'm going to keep it quick, and I'll call it a day for this witness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cross?
You mentioned that when Lorco offered to either pay for the second lift station or to let the developer install it and then they'd reimburse them for it, you had problems with that. Did you ever convey those problems to Lorco to see if they could help with those additional problems?
We did not.
Okay. So Mr. Toy's testimony that you didn't get back to him, meaning neither your engineering firm nor KNG, was correct. Fair enough?
Meaning after that email, getting back to him, correct, we did not.
Okay. So you didn't give them a chance to discuss anything they might do to offset the concerns you raised about that offer?
Correct.
That's all. Thank you.
Redirect?
Based on the fact that you already had a pump station that would service the area, was there any reason for you to get back in touch with Lorco?
No.
Thank you.
Al, you good? Recross, you good?
No, I'm gonna wait.
Is there anything from the commissioners for this witness? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Keep on chugging.
Keep on chugging.
Last one. Mr. Price, please.
Mr. Price, you previously testified about your opinion regarding sewer, water, electricity, police, fire, EMS, and Grafton's ability to provide those to the property sought to be annexed. You did talk about electricity, and subsequent to your testimony, Mr. Edward Van Hoos, the manager of Lorraine Medina Rural Electric Co-op, testified. I'll ask you, do you recall him saying that the exclusive territory of rural Medina was something that they would defend and fight against any change in their territory?
I do.
Do you believe that should this annexation go forward, that that's possible for them to succeed?
They could fight anything they want, but they'd have to be fighting the Ohio Constitution and the Ohio Revised Code.
Why is that?
Because the Ohio Constitution explicitly says when a public municipal electric system is established, any land within its incorporated limits, and if this land is incorporated in, it becomes their sole service area. Now, there's an exception to everything, as he's given an exception. The exception would be if they had any existing customers, they would be allowed to continue to service that customer.
Do they
But I'm
have
just-
any customers in
They
that
do not.
area sought to be annexed?
They do not.
Did you arrive at this opinion on your own, or did you seek some authority?
I reached out to council. We deal with this on a regular basis, and I sit on 6 committees for American Municipal Power. So I reached out to legal counsel for municipal affairs with American Municipal Power.
And you received this opinion regarding the...
That is,
Are you aware of a case called Village of Grafton versus Ohio Edison?
I am.
All right. And does that have to do with this very issue?
It has mirroring issues in the fact that in the early 90s, First Energy was trying to come into the incorporation. They were in the incorporated limits of Grafton. So is Lorraine Medina Electric, by the way. They were there, and they were trying to take over some large customers. And the Village of Grafton actually defended its position based on the Ohio Constitution. The Ohio Revised Code prevailed at all 3 levels of the court, including the Ohio Supreme Court.
And we'll brief that, but that buttresses your understanding that
That is
you believe
my-
Mr. Van Hoos was incorrect in his statement.
Well, he deals with a complete different regulatory, not completely different, but a different regulatory set of rules that he has to abide by, and I understand his position. And had we had the opportunity to talk, I would have been more than happy to help him with that. And again, it's a two-way street, I felt. I know he felt that Grafton had not reached out to him, but I kind of wish he had reached out to us. He also said that he wouldn't come into Grafton, not realizing until we spoke afterwards, he has 12 current customers in Grafton.
And you haven't done anything to kick him out, correct?
No, and we would not. For that same reason that we defended this, and it was decided by the Ohio Supreme Court, it is a prohibition for us to go to those customers and take them from them. We can't do that. We have to honor that agreement both ways. And now, if they came to us, and it has happened, First Energy came to me in 2018 and asked me to take 3 of their customers, and we complied, and we did that for them.
Okay. Would there be any reason would there be any utility of an agreement between the county and Grafton regarding road maintenance if the annexation did not go forward?
There is the terms of an agreement, as I understand it, have already been made. We would be responsible for our 50% side of the road, and that's stretch of Turkey.
Is that agreement going to affect conditioned upon the annexation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Johnson?
You're not an attorney licensed in the state of Ohio, are you? I am not. Okay.
You don't need to smile when you say that, by the way.
Oh,
Couple-
I have to be, my daughter's an attorney, so I have to be kind.
Now you know why I left my mask on when I asked that. So the legal issues we can handle in a brief. I'm not going to talk to you or go over that with you. What's the income tax in the Village of Grafton?
1.5%.
1.5?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And okay, that's all I have. Thanks.
Is there anything from the commissioners? I think at this point, council would, thank you. I think at this point, we've heard from the witnesses that the parties intend to, we've heard from the witnesses the parties intend to present. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Both sides, okay. I would like from both sides, and Gretchen, I include you on this also, although I know you sent me a brief today, I appreciate it. I'd like proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law in 7 days. Is that gonna pose a problem for anybody? If you, I mean, we have time, it's your process. If you want more time, tell me now, but if we can do it in a week, I think we can move relatively quickly.
I think that we probably can. I don't think I have anything, I don't have any trials or
Al?
Let me check on something as well.
Take my son to the NFL draft on Thursday.
Are you really?
Yeah, he's gonna have
I said
fun.
you should if
Nice.
there's anybody here before we
Excited.
close.
Tell him
He
to
is
pick well.
12. He's almost 13, yeah, he's
He's
excited.
perfect age for that.
He didn't think I could pull it off, I got tickets.
Could I suggest, 1 week from today would be the 27th, just because emergencies tend to happen.
Go down your list as you provided.
How about May 1?
That's fine. You know, the reality is we operate this board operates on a Wednesday to Wednesday schedule. So, you know, if we can go to, if the 27th doesn't work, maybe let's go to May 3rd. You guys can get them to me.
I don't have any issue with another week, I mean.
Yeah,
we've
that's
been
fine.
doing
And that way,
this for-
if we can go to May 3rd, you can get them to me and we'll be ready. You know, we're gonna have some other things on the agenda on the 5th, but they'll be ready for, they'll have it for the board
You'll
then.
be prepared to discuss this on the 5th
We will. We're gonna have,
with all their finals? Okay.
I mean,
we'll
I don't know
have,
if you're gonna need time to review or,
2 days is fine.
okay.
And just so it's clear, I will provide the proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law, but that would fit into a short brief explaining why. So if that's okay, that's what I would plan to do.
Absolutely. I'm not gonna tell you how to structure your argument. If you wanna brief it to me, I know we talked a lot of people expressed a lot of opinions about the law. I'm happy to listen. We're happy to, and I'll advise the commissioners, they'll read the briefs. We'll present them to them. However you wanna structure it, that's fine. What I'd like is proposed findings and conclusions if I can get them.
Thank you.
And likewise, sir, I would mention, you did mention we gave you a brief, but with all due respect, I'd like to submit potentially something from our fire chief in response to
gonna get
Mr. Monchion's assertions regarding
chance to
fire.
speak.
But
She's number
otherwise, I
4.
would certainly be willing to do the proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Thank you, Gretchen. Chief, hold on one second.
No, she's number 4. Any city officials present who'd like to speak, would like to make a statement. She's number 4, so she would
We're at
fall
that
under
point.
that. Yes.
Yeah, we are. This is just the mechanics of how the lawyers are working it out. Gretchen, that's fine. Obviously, if we're gonna bring testimony in, then we have an issue, but if you wanna submit something in rebuttal, we'll give it the weight that it's due,
Thank you.
okay? At this point, I think we've completed the jural part of this hearing.
Thank
Hearing
you,
no
Board.
objection.
Thank you, Attorney Petticoat.
I will pass this back over to Commissioner Hung to do the,
Okay,
Rest
so
of it.
we have 3 more items here. Number 4, are there any city officials present who would like to make a statement?
Thanks. No, I think she probably just would rather do a brief.
counsel.
legal counsel.
Is there anything, Gretchen, is there anything further you wanna say, or are we good?
Oh, no, I appreciate the
This is your
opportunity.
turn.
I would just note that.
Can you come to the microphone?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Sounds like she'd rather do a brief.
You're right.
I think she's here, I think Gretchen's here, you're pretty much here as a lawyer.
Yes,
not-
I am. And so I appreciate the opportunity, but I would just submit that I feel a need to refute Mr. Monchion's assertions regarding our fire department and the capabilities. So that's why I asked Mr. Petticourt for that opportunity. But otherwise, I don't have any comments as a public official.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone present in favor of this annexation that wanted to make a statement?
I know you had said village or city officials. Can I comment?
Oh, should we just back
I
up
didn't know
then?
if you meant township officials as well.
Well, that's
Local
where we
government.
started at.
That's where we started.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We
I-
started
I-
with.
I think,
Oh, you did township then village?
Yeah.
I think we had,
No, I said city officials.
you
I
did.
didn't say village.
I heard city, so I didn't stand up. But if I may,
Is there
Well,
something?
township trustees was first, that was number 3.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
didn't hear you say that, I apologize.
But we did 3
I think it
already.
depended because we had 2 different hearings, okay?
yeah, we did 3 in the other hearing.
And what happened, if I remember, Commissioner Hung, at that time, council said you're gonna be a witness, so you decided to wait until, your side decided to wait until testimony. You know, because you're a witness, you're a public official, you guys can do what you wanna do and what the board wants. I think it's cleaner that, I believe your position is pretty clear. So I would say that my preference would be your testimony stands as testimony, and it doesn't get mixed together with public comment, but that's certainly an option for the board.
I mean, do you remember last time when I asked you that, if you wanted to come up
Yeah, I
and
just
speak?
saw you're wrapping up the hearing right now.
Yeah, I'm just going down my list on who talks next.
I
It just got
guess,
truncated because we were two different places. That's all.
Sure, sure.
I guess I just think as far as an elected official, if an elected official wants to speak,
I
in
have
my
no
position,
problem.
we provide that opportunity.
You have no problem, Commissioner Lundy? I have no problem.
Okay.
Just in general,
Well, I think, no, you'd want to speak also, I thought. There's some other
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
township.
well, okay, we'll
But
do this.
neither of those were sworn in. So
They're not,
just-
but this isn't testimony.
Okay.
This is testimony. This is not testimony, this is public comment.
This is public, yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
public comment from public officials, different thing. That's why I said, Jason, just make sure you're.
yeah, just
your line-
simply,
Yeah,
while a lot of times I'm trying to defend a position, simply, we look forward in Eaton Township to this development to be part of the township. We look forward to the 55 homes, and we look forward to those new members of the community being in the township and working with the developer in the future to make it happen. And I'd like to respond to anything Grafton submits about their fire department, if I could be in, or throughout.
Through Al.
yeah.
Okay, so now I get to number 5?
No,
No,
there's some other township.
Oh, okay,
In
they're city
favor, they're
official,
number
they're
5,
township
yeah.
trustees, I apologize. Okay, if you could state your name, please?
Christy Homer Miller, Grafton Township. I'm a trustee.
Amy Richards, Fiscal Officer, Grafton Township.
We are here supporting Eaton Township in the opposition to this annexation. We've had some prior dealings with annexation, as Jason Monchine mentioned. It is in the Court of Appeals right now, and that involves Grafton Village, Eaton Township, and Grafton Township.
And we did try and work on it, Jen, that's why we're in the Court of Appeals. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone present in favor of this annexation wanting to make a statement? Okay, seeing none on 5, moving on to 6. Is there anyone present in opposition to this annexation wanting to make a statement? Oh, jeez.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
It's an alias this time.
I think Jason's positioning for a commissioner run.
Oh, my goodness.
Like those, the Deanne Sanders commercials, right? It's Mason Jason, right?
Okay, commissioners, are we all set? Sure. All right, I will move to close the public hearing portion.
A second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hahn?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Lundy.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to B, other business. Is there any other business, Madam Clerk?
I do not have anything today.
Okay, moving on to C, Clerk's report. Madam Clerk.
Tomorrow we'll have a commissioners meeting at 9:30 a.m.
And I hope to see all of you here for that tomorrow morning.
If they're allowed. So
All right.
we are looking forward to a May 5th vote on this. Is that my understanding?
Is that what we're,
So everybody here knows that's probably the bottom line?
I believe it will be ready for you, it will be right for you on May 5th. That will give the parties a chance to brief it, and you'll have a couple days to make a decision. I will warn you that it's likely we're gonna have to deal with another annexation at the May 5th meeting, and the JVS annexation will be heard that day. But I think, I think everything will be right by that point.
so it'll be on Wednesday,
Yeah,
not
Cinco de
Tuesday.
Mayo Day.
But not it's Wednesday, not Tuesday.
I mean, you can
Did I say
always,
Tuesday? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just asking,
Oh, the
making sure
5th
it's
is,
Wednesday.
you
Wen-
can
the
do it
5th
on
is
a
Wednesday.
Tuesday. You could put both those annexations on
We
a
could put, yeah,
Tuesday.
you could have a special hearing to do it if you
Not
want.
if you,
Not a
yeah,
special hearing, it's a commissioners meeting on that Tuesday, the
Okay.
4th.
we do have a commissioners meeting on the 4th?
He can if you want to put those two annexation hearings on that day. or
We'll talk about that later.
decisions.
It'll be ready for you by the beginning of May. It'll be ready for decision. When they have 30 days to make a decision, I anticipate
No,
something.
however long the board needs.
I think it's, I think council, just for the commissioners, we've talked about this, and I think Al would agree. The council have discussed it, the four of us. I think we'd all prefer that it be done correctly and right. And if that means that it takes an extra 10 days, it's better than rushing through it. Is that
Absolutely.
accurate from everybody? Okay.
And just briefly, I just want to thank, and I think I speak on behalf of all the attorneys here,
Yes.
We really appreciate the time the commissioners gave to this. We know that sometimes it's frustrating when we argue back and forth and all that stuff, but we really appreciate your time and listening to us, so thank you.
You're welcome.
And we all respect one another outside the lines.
Thank you to everybody. I appreciate the professionalism. I appreciate you being prepared.
Okay, is there any further business from this board? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.